Louisiana lies within the geologic tectonic province known as the Gulf Coast Basin. The New Madrid seismic zone is the area most likely to produce earthquakes that could affect Louisiana. Other more immediate geologic faulting hazards in Louisiana are associated with growth faults. Many of the growth faults, located primarily in the southern portion of the state, show movement as a gradual form of fault creep rather than in conjunction with detectable earthquakes. Flooding in Louisiana is probably the most common and intense recurring natural hazard in the state. Erosion of the coast, tropical storms, forced draining system failures, and low elevation all contribute to flooding in Louisiana.
This is Tom Bearden in Krotz Springs, Louisiana. This is one of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in that community. About 250 homes, about 500 people live here. The Louisiana National Guard is building a makeshift levee around this area because right now it doesn't have any flood protection. And there's a mandatory evacuation order. People here have been ordered to leave. But a lady we talked to just down the street isn't leaving. She says there's no way they can make her do so because that's her dream house. She spent 20 years saving money for it. It's only 2 years old. She isn't going anywhere. About 2 miles behind me is an 86-year-old lady who is leaving town. She's been through 4 floods, and this will be her 5th. She went through the famous 1927 flood, which is the benchmark for all high water in this area, and she went through the 1973 flood. She is evacuated every time this has happened, and one time she had to leave because the levee behind her broke and her house became inundated with water. She was only about 3 years old at the time. And we asked her what she's going to do because they're anticipating about 18 feet of water where her house is. And she said she's leaving town because she can't swim.
During a hurricane, there is a triple threat of damage from high winds, including tornadoes, storm surge, and flooding associated with heavy rains. Storm surge is a large dome of water, often 50 to 100 miles wide, which sweeps ashore near a hurricane's landfall and is responsible for the largest amount of storm-related deaths around the world.
When warm humid air rises from the ocean, hitting cold air, convergent winds force the warm air into the atmosphere, where it releases heat as it condenses into clouds and rain. The exchange of heat from the surface creates a pattern of wind that spirals up around the eye of the storm. Water vapor from the ocean continues to fuel the storm. The hurricane's high winds create a massive amount of water along the front of the eye that causes storm surges as the hurricane moves over the ocean.
Hurricane strength is often listed in categories using the Saffir-Simpson hurricane scale, which rates hurricanes from 1 to 5 based on the intensity of the sustained winds.
Grand Point Road, the other side of the bayou, got hit very much with torrential rains and wind. I've talked to some of the people that they heard the wind, got in the closets, and protected themselves. So hopefully we have no one that got injured.
It blew out my mom's window in her bedroom. Our patio flew off in the back. It's actually over here in the neighbor's yard. And we got outside and we walked out to this.
The erosion of the coastline and wetlands of Louisiana increases their exposure to hazards including hurricane-generated winds and storm surge, and also increases the risks of hazards such as flooding and levee failure. Louisiana is losing 25 to 35 square miles of wetlands per year. Louisiana lost approximately 1,900 square miles of coastal land, the equivalent of the state of Delaware. In a no-action scenario, projections indicate that the state would lose 700 additional square miles by 2050. Louisiana could potentially lose 1/3 of its coastline. Floods are its biggest problems, and Louisiana has a high dependency on man-made structures such as dams and levees and forced drainage systems, which is really risky and dangerous because it is a hurricane-prone area, so these structures are likely to fail, which can lead to a catastrophe. The major hazards are low elevation, non-distinct coastlines, faulting, and unstable ground. This, along with other non-geological hazards such as hurricanes, severe storms, and high sea rise, contribute to high levels of erosion on its coastlines, high frequency, and dangerous floods and loss of wetlands. Louisiana has the 5th highest number of declared disasters.